Welcome to the GameDev.tv Community Podcast. I'm your host KB, and I would like to introduce you to industry professionals and people who successfully made their path to the video game industry. I hope that you will enjoy the podcast and get useful tips that will bring you closer to achieving your dreams. Now, let's get right into the podcast.
I'm Nova. I am an independent game developer. I also, part-time, I'm a professor at Pratt, and I am writing a book for Apress, computer book, game design computer book for Apress.
That must take a long time.
For the book or for
the book.
Yeah, I'm in like towards the end. It's like one of the last chapters I'm writing.
Okay. How long have you been working on that book?
Since the beginning of the year. So it's like a 2020 thing. I think it's gotten me through COVID. Yeah, it's like a COVID book. Perfect timing to be like isolated in front of my computer working on the book.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So let's get into how this all started, game development. What was your childhood like? Did you play any games? Any games that inspired you?
So that's okay. So yeah, I used to when I went to my friends' houses, I had one across the street who had the Nintendo
64?
the NES,
the
NES. That was so it was like the Donkey Kong all the time over there. Beyond that, before that, I forgot. My father had the Atari, the one with the red button in the top.
Yeah, you're
not
old
the red
school.
button, but the joystick with the circular red and then the red button on the side. But the thing about it was I was kind of young and he wouldn't let me play with it ever because he was like, was too young, I would break it. So to me, that was like this thing that he had that I couldn't do as a kid. And like he could only have access to. I always wanted to play, but that was not a toy for me. That was not a thing. So I always kind of grew up at the beginning, like later when my friends had the consoles, wanting to always play. And that was always a thing that I wanted to do. And then in my house, my father, so he's retired now, but he was a programmer, and he was always against consoles for some odd reason. But He was always like, oh, the future of games are going to be he would always say they're going to be in PC. So you should be playing games PC. So anyways, I always had a thing about going to my friends' houses, and then like later Sega came on. That was
the
PlayStation.
I had that one.
The Sega. This is the thing, I never had them. So to me, it was like this privileged, luxurious thing to go somewhere and to get access to them.
Like experience.
Once in a while, my father let us rent the PlayStation, like when it came out, the first one.
Mm-hmm.
So my favorite game was Twisted Metal. That was my ultimate favorite game.
How come it was just like the I guess matureness to it, the driving around, the killing,
Yeah. I guess the first PC game was, I was also too young. So I would watch my sister play Prince of Persia, the first one. And then like Carmen Sandiego. So this is like the DOS, like the computers, like I believe you had a Commodore computer. This is a while ago.
Yeah, that's before mine. Because see, when I was younger, the PlayStation 1 like just came out. And I don't really remember much of Nintendo and Atari stuff. I was more of a Sony guy and Sega and the PC. And then eventually I got my PS2 and I was like Sony fanboy, PS3, PS4, PS5. But and so then
I was too young. We're talking about when the Atari thing, I was like 3 years old.
Mm-hmm.
When the whole DOS thing with the Prince of Persia, I was like 5, watching my sister play. I was really young. I have a big memory of.
Oh, so you're probably the same age as me then, around there.
Yeah, we're about the same age, I believe. It's just like I was super young. We just happened to have a computer, just because my father, like back then in the 80s, my father used to work
with computers.
He used to work for banks, so we had access to computers.
I'm curious, do you game on computers now, or do you use a console?
Oh, it's funny. And I stuck with like PCs. I think it's because of my childhood.
Mm-hmm. It's funny because I think I had the Sega, and then I had the PC, and I played a lot on the computer on the PC. But I don't really care to game on a PC right now. Like, I have a PC
Interesting
that can game, but I'd rather have my console, my PlayStation 5.
Here, this is my baby over here.
There's your baby. I see the RGB. Is it the RAM?
Yeah.
Hey, that's what I have to.
Yeah, that's the one of the RAMs. Yeah.
That's my favorite. I have it where like the light goes down. It's just, oh.
Yeah.
It's funny because when I first made it, I was like, oh no, I don't care about RGB. I just want a computer that like, does the stuff. And then it came with the CPU came with like a little bit of RGB, and I saw that and I was like, oh no, this is really cool. Can you imagine if you go all out? So I went all out.
I think like that's what we do. I feel like back when we're in another generation, it's gonna be like kind of like when we look at the 80s and everybody's wearing this neon colored clothes. I feel like when we look at back the computers from this era in the future, they're gonna be like, oh wow, why are they so like colorful? Is that why did they do that? What was that a thing? Like everybody will be like dull lights. It wouldn't be just like black. Everything's like pitch black, like the whole thing in the future.
Or just like chrome, like that SpongeBob episode.
Or yeah, some like nothing, like, or transparent or something.
Oh, true. Or not, it doesn't even exist. It's like invisible.
Oh yeah, well yeah, you're right. More like cloud computers. It's like, wow, you had a box.
Yeah, you had a box. It's in my head. Oh, that's it. It's gonna be in our head. We're gonna have like neural link computers. We are the computer essentially.
Yeah.
Can you imagine that? That's a whole nother topic. But
yeah,
so then you playing games and stuff. When did you like get into loving games as a profession? When you were like, hey, I want to do that as a career. Was that during school?
It was actually later in my life. But okay, the first time I had access to making somewhat of games was, I think I must have been 8. There was a program on the computer that my father put. It was like I don't know, it was Fusion. I don't know. It was like an event-based game making thing. But the only thing that was sad was I wasn't interested at the beginning. So I got interested in the animation of whatever the game was. Like, how the hell did that happen? So then I studied animation for undergrad. So then it wasn't even after that. So after undergrad that I started looking at concept art for games. And I thought that was the coolest thing. So it's almost like concept art of games got me interested in games.
And that's still like later on, like that wasn't early. You weren't like a drawer when you were younger?
Well, when I was younger, it was all about I wanted just to draw. I just wanted to draw.
Okay.
Like, draw anything. And it was mainly, I wanted to be, as a child, I wanted to be a cartoonist for like newspapers. That was my childhood dream at the beginning. So it wasn't until later on. It was one of those things that I didn't think, oh, you could be a game artist or you could make games. I wasn't like that just didn't go through my head. That was the problem. Yeah.
And so you said you got inspired by those newspaper cartoons. Did you also get inspired by like any animated cartoons?
Animated cartoons?
Yeah, like either the ones here or anime.
Television. Like, you mean like in television, like animation? I used to watch The Simpsons. That was my show. The Simpsons, and there was I'm from Argentina, so there was an anime in Argentina. It was a soccer anime. I have no idea what it's called, but literally, like in Argentina, that's the only anime we had. Like that was it. It was just literally
just one anime.
It was like one anime, and it was soccer based,
of course,
which kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
So like I love that show. So I love that one. I love Simpsons and Smurfs. I was kind of young.
Oh, really?
But yeah, that was it.
Did you ever watch Avatar: Last Airbender?
Avatar, which one?
The Last Airbender?
I don't think so.
Okay, you have to now. That's your new 2020 like goal before the year ends. You got to watch it. But no, that's the same thing. Like I used to watch that when I was younger, and I was like, I kind of want to create something, but I didn't know what. I didn't know if it was drawing, if it was the behind the scenes like managing, or I don't know, but like that stuff, all seeing that come to life always inspired me.
Yeah, that I feel like a lot of us, it's like we want to create something, but we're all like our ADD on like what the hell we're gonna create.
Oh yeah, it's bad. I don't know if that's just our generation, because I feel like, I guess at least some of the seniors I talk to, they're very focused, and I'm like focused on 20 things. I'm like, you're doing this, and I'm trying to do 20 things. Why? Why am I like that? Are you feel the same way? Like you're trying to do so many things at once?
Yeah, especially for deciding to only be an independent developer, game developer. It's almost like I keep teaching myself different programs and different things. Like yesterday, I downloaded a brand new program, Marvelous Designer, which is out of nowhere, just because I wanted to learn how to make clothes just for my 3D characters, just like a random, it's like very specific for something. So it's like, yeah, then it's like, let's say I want to look at the physics of a game, then I'll look into some physics thing. And then at the same time, not only for game dev though, like for example, I bought myself a moped, and then I'm like building like customized a moped
Wait, what's
right
a moped?
now. A moped, it's a like a motorbike, a bike with a
motor.
Oh,
Okay,
yeah. That's like a little stronger than an e-bike.
Yeah, but weaker than like a motorcycle. It's like
yeah, it's bigger. It depends because you could make it go fast, but it's like an old school bike, one of those. Anyways, but yeah, that's so. Anyways, from computer things, ADD on trying to get projects happening, but also like outside real life things I like to do.
And so, when you started taking drawing seriously, how did you practice every day, or is it just something that kind of came natural to you? How was it for you?
Oh, so I actually have a story for that, or like a thing for that. So I actually, well, a couple different situations. Okay, and again, when I was 8, it's funny. When I was 8, my father had this cartooning book in the closet. And it's interesting, like it was his book, and this is like an old school book. It had like yellowish pages, and it was really thick.
Okay.
Like from back in like one of the first books made of cartoons making. I stole the book because he wouldn't give it to me. So I stole it, and then I was like drawing from it. I was just like practicing drawing it. I got through like the first couple of pages, and like I looked at the work that I was supposed to do, and I looked at my work, and I was just like, oh my God, it's not perfect. And I started to cry. I'm like, no. I'm like, oh my God, I'm like the worst artist in the world. Nobody told me, like, and I had nobody to tell me, hey, look, art, it's like takes practice. You're not supposed to be completely natural. Interesting. I actually have those drawings. And when I look back at those drawings, it's like, it was really good. It wasn't that bad. It was okay, especially when for 8. So it's funny how tough I was as a kid. Then I didn't draw for some time. Instead I daydreamed that I was a good drawer.
Interesting. What do you mean by daydream? Like you pretend?
Daydream. So like it was so I would always in my head imagine that I could paint pretty well. I literally daydreamed a lot about being a good drawer and a good painter. And for years, we're talking about years, until about high school. Then in high school, I got a lot into I guess I was always late to classes, so I always ended up in detention. And when I got into detention, I realized that the environment of detention, it was so quiet, and you got this humongous table. And I was like, oh, wow, this is like the perfect place to draw and to carry out, it's almost like because I wanted to so bad to go to an art school. I wanted to be in a technical art school. So I would go to detention with art books from the library. And then I started in high school, it's almost like it made me feel for an hour or 2 hours after school in detention, but to me it was like I was in art school. I would just be drawing from the books, and I would just kind of like teach myself to draw, and that was it. It's almost like that was my training. That was detention was school, because I so wanted, like I asked my parents, oh, can I go to a technical school? I would love to go to a technical, and then like they were like, okay, we have no money. It's like, all right, I'll make my own.
You're like, I'm gonna go to detention and become an artist.
Yeah, so I did that. I would literally walk into my class about 1 minute late. I would just, before the bell rang, I would just stand there for a second and just walk in and be like, okay, you got attention. All right, thank you.
You're like, yes.
That was it. And then eventually the principal did get to me though about like too many detentions. So that was a whole thing about, but I was like, okay, I just, oh, I'm sorry. And I would just say, it's fine. But so that I would just end up going to the library after school instead sometimes, or I would skip classes and go to the library and then go to the art section and just look at books. A lot of times I wasn't actually drawing from them. I was just looking at them, admiring them. I feel like this high school era, it was just training my brain to like what it is that art's supposed to look like, supposed to be almost like an art direction. Like I guess maturing your brain for this. And then later on when I studied in undergrad, I feel like I had a better sense of what like strokes should look like, circles and perspective and things of that nature. Yeah,
that's very unique. I don't to know like a high school being like, I have this whole plan. I'm gonna get detention, learn art stuff, and then also gonna go to the library, study all this stuff. Like, did anybody else do that, or you feel like you're the only one that was just going out on their own and being independent?
It's interesting. Actually, that's a good question. I don't know. I was always alone. I felt in the library. Also,
that's what I feel like we would have said, because even I didn't do anything like you did. I just read books, but like I feel like I was the only one going to the library, renting out books, and being like, "There's nobody here."
I would do that. I would even like when I was skipping the classes, I would pretend I was like from other state or some other place, so I would be like friendly to the staff, so they wouldn't say anything. I even also, there was books that they didn't have. I even got the staff to order books.
Wow.
So that was, because I mean, this is like an art in a thing in the middle of, I live in a rural area. It wasn't such a intense thing. But no, I didn't. My friends would do other things after school. I would, after school and during school, they wouldn't. Yeah, they were in class. I was supposed to be in class. I was supposed to be in English class. Yeah, I didn't pass English. I went to night school for English, just to know. That was it. You shouldn't do that.
Oh, wow.
So that
was night class hard though, or was it easier than probably regular English?
Night school? Oh, night school. We didn't really do anything. So it was
that's what I figured.
That never happened.
Did you do more art in there too?
Actually, no, I didn't. I did just relax for a second. That was like, night school wasn't I feel like that wasn't part of my schooling system. That was like daytime. I had other plans for like, I guess evening times, but also it was like a month or 2 months. Night school wasn't that long to cover for a thing of going for.
That's interesting. I guess it shows that like if you structure it, you can do it in 2 months instead of like a whole year. Yeah. But if you're only doing one course too.
But I mean, which is English. Interesting. I always say that I didn't do much in high school. I feel like I would, if I could go back, I would probably go for a GED, and then like I didn't think it was, and I would have just dropped out, then just done the same thing I used to do, but
you're saying you would have just dropped out, go GED, and then go to art?
Yeah, I mean, my sister did that, but I wanted to I thought that was not a good thing to do back then.
That's what they tell you.
Yeah, so like, I don't know if I could go back. I don't know. Which I feel opposite than other school systems. Like I thought that my undergrad and studying like the math, the history, and all that stuff was really important. So I don't know. So I'm all for it. It's funny how I'm a professor. I also taught high school at one point, but I'm against high school.
No, but to get to the point where you are, you have to go through some of those things. It's like you can't be, perfect, like goody two shoes, but then you also like, you have to kind of like rebel, learn yourself, be creative, and then come to the point where you grow mature and you're like, all right, now it's time to like learn, and I'm going to teach you guys what I've learned because I messed around, but now we got to be serious and disciplined. But don't, at some moments, branch out. Don't stick to the box. Go outside the box. That's where you learn and find yourself. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I feel interesting how my immatureness of not wanting to go to class, immatureness for that, but technically I was serious about my future in a way. So, which is interesting. It was a weird irony of things.
Yeah, because I was gonna ask, and I kind of lost the main question, but basically, did you feel like when you were going to the to the library and stuff like that, was it something where you were like, hey, I am improving for the future, or is it just, hey, I want to have fun?
Interesting. To me, I feel like I was living in the moment. I wasn't really thinking about anything. I was 100% living in the moment. I just wanted to just enjoy life in the moment. I didn't really think about the future. I didn't even think about going to college. There was no plan. It was just, this is what I would do right now. That's it.
You still do have that mentality?
Like about the living in the moment. I have it pretty big. I do think about the future, but I feel like a lot of my life has been living in the moment. I feel like if somebody let's say if I went to the doctor and they were like, oh, you have cancer or something like that, I wouldn't probably change anything. I would just, it's like every day I wake up and I do what I would want to do. That's
beautiful.
Pretty much. There's always some things that I would change, but for the overall thing, yeah. Hopefully I don't get cancer though.
It's cross our fingers, knock on wood. No. Okay, so then after that you went to school, you went to college. So when did you were like, hey, okay, I want to make games, or I want to do game design, I want to do drawing as a career? Like when was that click? And then from there, when did you start studying for that?
Okay, so undergrad, it's interesting how I had a friend that used to study game development. There was also this, so first let's go for the right before the, like, I didn't want to do this part. There was this, we had the game design department by the animation. And I remember they had a room where everybody was playing games. And then I was with my animation buddies, I guess, classmates. And then I remember once I picked into that room, and then people were like, just kind of like staring at me, like, what the hell? Why are you here? Like almost like this, why are you here? Why are you in like our space? And then when I went back, I got it back, and I'm like that didn't feel good. That was like a weird thing. Like, I don't want to be with these people, almost, it felt like. So it was like interesting how that's just because of that, my brain was like, oh no, I don't like this game stuff. So that was like just a bad thing that's not how gamers are, and etc. But anyways, so that just happened. I graduated from animation. I got a job as an animator for like a it's a pre-production for TV commercials.
Okay.
So it's like they did storyboards there, concept art, and animatics. So I was working in the animatics and the 3D animation part. I kind of started to not like it very full on at the beginning. I felt that there was like this lack of like I liked it, but I almost felt like I wanted to be a little bit more creative. And I think the big part of it had to do is like when you're working with somebody else and you're almost like at the bottom of that company, you're almost like you're just following somebody else's thing.
Exactly.
And you just get to do it. I started to, I think it's funny, a library. I think I went to Barnes and Nobles because I used to do that also as a kid. So I would just go there just to look at magazines and computer books. So one of those magazines was, what is it? One of the, they still have that, the fantasy one, the one that they put games in. What is that magazine?
The only one that's coming to my head is I think it's the Game Informer, but that's for reviews.
No, it was the concept art. It starts with an F. FX something. Image effects. Okay, so it's a concept art mainly. I was looking at it and I realized that most of the cool art in there was for games, for sure. And I was like, oh wow, if you make art for games, I was like, unlike film, this is like, it's very creative. Like people make really cool robots, really amazing like weapons and fantasy things. I'm like, oh wow, like this. So this creativity thing just happened to be right in the moment where I was like, I thought that my career was a little bit like not as creative. And then like this, I was looking at how creative people were when they were making games and like game characters and etc. and props and whatnot. So that was a big change. So But I still, though, even though I liked it so much, I was still like, oh, I could be an illustrator. I wasn't even thinking about game art still to that. So this is like 2000
Wow.
and so it's funny, even with like literally there's like buzz everywhere about like lights shining to it and like still nothing. Like my brain is just
this
like,
is
oh,
it. And you're like, no, I'm going this way.
So anyways, I was like, oh, I could be an illustrator. I would like that. And then like illustrations also, I didn't even know it's more like advertisement type of illustrator. I didn't even know. Anyways, so I was like, oh, an illustrator. I'm like, I even thought of getting a master's in illustration at that time. This is around 2010, I think it was.
Okay.
2011. 2011. And so okay, so I was looking. Okay, so another buzz. I was looking online in actually Craigslist back then. It was a thing that you could actually get a job, and they were supposed to work on Zynga's game Mafia Wars, and he was a game artist. So I applied there. They weren't asking for experience. They were just asking for a portfolio. So I was like, okay, let me just send my animation art in there to what I did in my undergrad. So anyways, I got the job. Even still, the job had a game artist in it. It just took me some time to figure it out. Like
you're still like, nah, that's not it.
I traveled for about a year after that. And then when I was traveling, I decided that I wanted to get a master's in game art, or even if it was like a visual, like a 2D, and then just focus my portfolio on game art. That was around 2011, beginning of 2012. So I started my game art. So I wasn't even thinking about job-wise. I was thinking more of, let me make a portfolio. I wasn't even thinking that I was even good enough, or I wasn't even sure what to draw in 2011. And I started to make a portfolio for the purpose of getting into a master's program. 2011, that's what it was. Wow. I just happened to get from there to I ended up getting a master's 2017, which is an interesting, in the middle of that, I ended up just getting a bunch of jobs teaching game design, etc. And I definitely learned on the job. I didn't know like, anything.
Where did you get? It was art, it was drawing.
Yeah, I didn't. I didn't. I learned on the job. I had no idea. I learned programming as I was teaching.
Wow.
I learned everything. I learned Unity.
Oh my God.
I guess I was always weeks before my students, of course, but I learned on the job.
So how did it even happen? You were like, hey, can you teach game design? Or they were like, no, you're going to teach game design. You're like, all right.
Okay, so it actually happened. I was in Florida, 2000, I think it was 14. Okay. I was in Florida 2014. I said I quit all the freelance work that I had at that point and everything, and I said I bought a ticket to New York, and literally from month noticed. It was like the beginning of October, and then the end of I had a ticket for the end Halloween to go to New York. I didn't know anybody in New York. I didn't know where I was going to stay at. I only had a couple $100. I had only a couple $100. No, hold on. I had a couple $100. I got rid of I had a 2-bedroom apartment. I just gave it my stuff to my friends. I just got rid of everything. I just took one backpack because I thought it was easy to move around in case something happened with one backpack. So I didn't know anyone. So this is why I said live in the moment, what I said before. I really mean that. I took one backpack. I accidentally put my surfing clothes instead of my working clothes in it. So
nice.
I had nothing. I had nothing. I had the clothes I had on me. Again, a couple $100 that I could rent for like a short time. And that's it. I had no plan. I just got to New York. Everybody's wearing costumes in Halloween. It was awesome. It was kind of, I never really been in New York. I didn't even know how to use the subway system. I didn't know anything. But so that week, so going back to that question, that 1 week, I applied to like 50 jobs in a Starbucks on a computer, like just a random, like I just really quickly, to the point I didn't even know what I was applying for. one of those jobs called me. The guy was desperate. He wanted somebody to come to a high school to teach it was an elective called video game design. And I don't even know, like, I didn't even know it was a high school. I'm like, oh yes. Like he just get, oh, can you come tomorrow? I'm like, yeah, I could come tomorrow. And I don't know. And then like, so this is like 1 week. So this is like, I guess I didn't know, I heard of Unity before. And I'm like, okay, maybe I could teach that. And then, and then I literally just taught myself before the classes came to be. My laptop, I had a laptop, like a really old laptop. Yeah. It got stolen. Okay, so it got stolen after a week. So I was teaching computers. I didn't even know, I didn't even have a computer to even prep the classes or to, so I just, again, to the library, I would go to Barnes and Nobles. So I went to Barnes and Nobles and I would just memorize the programming and then what could I do with the lessons? And then I would just go to the class and let's just teach. And that was a thing. That was how it happened. So that was the first. And then it's interesting, like when you have one job experience in New York, it's like, especially it was for game design and he was teaching and he was also high school, which is not even that easy to get. And now that I know about that, it was easier just to get other jobs. Like that was just like part-time. Then he was like full-time. Then with all the full-time high school, then I got professor jobs, etc. in game design. Then I did get a master's in NYU.
Eventually, wow.
So like then I'm like, okay, after now I actually had some experience and then I actually went to actually learn for real. Yes. So that's what it was. It was just taking the moment. It was just living in the moment.
There's just so much to unwrap in that.
All right, hold on. Can I just put the shade for a second? Because it's like shiny.
No problem. Yeah, it's like literally on your face. I'm like, dang.
Yeah.
Sun came out. That's crazy though. I can't.
All right.
Oh.
There you go. Okay, that's better.
All right. So did you tell anybody you were going to New York? Like, what was the thought process? You were like chilling and then I'm going to New York, or did you have this in your head before? Or?
Oh, no, it was chilling. And then I literally, even my mother, I'm like, oh yeah, she was like asking me about something. I'm like, oh, I'm in the airplane. I can't talk to you right now. I'm not going to New York.
What'd she say? Or like later on, she's like, what do you
okay, this is the thing though. I'm known for doing things like this, though. I remember, so she has a thing about, like, I have done something like that, like, for Puerto Rico. Same thing for, like, California. I also did, like, a couple of years back, I did travel around. I was traveling around, I guess, South America and United States. So I'm kind of known to be kind of a little bit off of the stuff.
Off the beaten path?
Yes. So that was a thing. That was a.
Did you ever meet like backlash where people were like, "That's dumb," or "That's not going to work out," or that?
Oh yeah. Oh hell yeah. That was like. Okay. I feel like actually, I think years back I had said, "Oh, I want to go to New York," and be like, "Oh, you need to at least $10,000 to go to New York to get this space. You need to make some connections." Yeah. Well, like I heard that before, for sure. That was like literally how I did like that. Just whatever. Just it was like also it was snowing. This is like winter time. I didn't even have any like winter clothes.
I don't know how you did that. That part's anything else. I'm like, I get it. You find that easy, but the cold. No, how you did that.
Yeah. So that was kind of crazy. Also, I did get my apartment in like it was a Craigslist post. Like I wouldn't recommend nobody to do that. That was just I just lucked out. Like that was.
You got lucky. It worked out.
I got super lucky. Like the whole thing. Mm-hmm. The whole thing was just me being lucky in every. I did the computer getting stolen was even like that was annoying, but I don't know everything. In a way, I was more light then. I could just easily move around. I don't know.
It's a great way to put it. You were like, yeah, just one less thing to carry.
Well, yeah, actually, if people think about moving with a lot of things, sometimes for such thing, I felt that I did just in case as an emergency, I did make a slight plan. I did look up, like, let's say if I needed a shelter or something, like places of shelter or like food banks and whatever. So I had a list of that. So things of that, I had it. I never got to use it. Luckily, I was lucky and never had to use. I quickly got work, but I had that, but I knew though that if you're homeless, if you had that, if you made it to that, then just like with a backpack, it's a lot easier just to like move your way, etc. That's, I don't know, that's what I thought, that's what I figured. But yeah, that was the thing. Luckily I got too lucky not to have to use like shelters, etc.
No, that's just amazing because first of all, I didn't do the same thing at all, but I moved to LA and it's like everybody said the same thing, like you can't move out there. And I'm like, I've been planning this for like the last 5 years, like I'm fine. But for you, it's like I love that story because it's literally like, yeah, it happens. You just do it, just go, because you know how many people don't do anything because of that mentality. Like this could go wrong,
exactly.
or I need $10,000 and they never get $10,000 and nobody gets anything, and then they are stuck in their situation. And I feel like you take the leap of faith, when you put yourself out there, things just tend to work out. I don't know why, because even my situation got super lucky, and I was like, "Is how?"
It happens.
It's literally like everything that everybody said would go wrong, the opposite happened, and I'm like, "Wow!" And then it was funny. I talked to a friend yesterday about, he was like, "Should I stay in Jackson, move to Miami?" And now my mentality is just go to Miami, bro. And then he kind of like came back to me like, "That's not how it works." And I was like, "All right, that's what you think." I believe it's just you got to make the choices for yourself. Take the leap of faith. Go out there, move wherever you need to move, and things might happen, work out for you. Things might not. Another podcast guest, her name was Liz. She got a call from Ubisoft being like, "Hey, can you come to Vancouver? We'll pay for your housing, but you're just gonna have to pack your bags and come like the next couple of days." And she was like, "Yes." And then she moved. It's like you just got to take those risks, and instead of it being like, "Oh, I'm scared," be like, "I'm excited."
That's better though. I would say to make a job thing before. I mean, I kind of went backwards. I just kind of went for it. Then I applied for work. Like it was a backwards. I feel like
I got
maybe
you,
it's just before I left, I could have probably made the applying first, but I don't know. I just it's one of those things you just want to go.
Sometimes you got it, especially if you're young. If you're young, it's like you could always fail and then just come back home and figure it out again and try better.
Oh, I don't think I had money for a plane ticket back, but
true. There was no going back. Maybe that's why it worked. Maybe you just like burned the bridge.
I think so. I had no choice.
You had no choice but to succeed.
Exactly.
Hey, but that's how greatness is born. At least most of the
time.
Okay, so let's say you're in New York now, and then why New York? Is it just New York? Or?
Oh, I always liked New York. I think it's just the subways. Interesting.
The subways. I don't know.
I love the subways. I am from Argentina. I was born in Argentina where there's subways, and I live in Florida. I never got used to not being in the city, because it's completely opposite. I lived in Florida for about 20 years. Never got used to it. I don't know. I was thinking about New York. I don't know, the commotion, the people, though. I think it's a rush of people for work. I feel like in Florida, I was too laid back, and I wanted that. It's almost like life was too easy. I had a very materialistic, well put together lifestyle, and like I wanted like one more in the risk. I guess you watch movies from before where people just go to New York and that's like people work there. I don't know. Maybe it's just like the old school dream of going to New York that was in my head. Maybe, I don't know. I do like cities for sure.
No, I love cities. I was born in New York and I always want to go back. Ever since I moved from there, I'm like, I want to go back. Because it's just something magical about New York.
Now you know you can just come with a backpack.
Yeah, no, actually I am later this month. I'm going to come with a backpack. Because my cousin lives in New York, and I'm gonna do New Year's there, and just like we'll see what happens. That's cool. Yeah, I'm excited. Cool. I love New York. Any chance I get to go to New York City, I'm like, I'm going. It's happening. I'm there. Yeah. But yeah, so going deeper into this whole, you got the game design job. So then from there, after teaching a little bit of that, what did you do next after that?
I mean, technically, if you think about it, I still to now more in the part-time that I still kind of teach to now. But I always moved up. It was more like salary, that kind of like money, like kind of raised you like less hours, more money per hour. And then to the point that I can now do full-time. I can be an independent full-time game developer, like an indie game developer. I'm just working on my game. And then it's just like on the side, like right now I just have a lot of saved up money from that. And I mean, right now seriously, we got 1 week until classes end, and I'm saved money for it's like half a year almost.
Nice.
So it's like just like independent. Yeah. So it's just transitioning into that, just being an indie dev, I guess. Even though it's interesting how people say, oh, do you want to go 100% full time? And I always like teaching even for fun on the side. So I don't even know if I would just do that. But yeah, technically I teach too now. This is what I do. It's like, it's been easier. It's easier and easier. I don't have to, I actually have a computer. I can prep my classes. It's not like before.
You're not living on your backpack anymore. You got a nice setup. You got everything now.
Yeah, I got it. Yeah, that's interesting how things just got easier and easier. Yeah.
You progress, you leveled up.
And interesting how now there's a lot of times that I actually work full-time teaching, and then I almost felt that it was very settled, like my life was settled. And so this is when it's almost like I'd rather go risk take again and go back to the indie world. I feel like that taking risks is always being part of like what made me grow, and then what has made me like right now, it's almost like I always desire that, not to have this perfect, I guess I always want to be a starving artist. I think that's always my passion, to be a starving, even though I have like really nice things. But I feel like that starving, but like, I feel like that's always something that I don't like to have this settle perfect. I don't want to work for this big corporation with a big salary and then just not be able to do personal work and things like that. I like that risk taking of, you make an indie game, and if it's not successful, then oh shoot, if it is, okay, that's good. You can maybe make the next one. But I think I have gone through the settled of teaching lifestyle, but then I went down into just like, okay, you're just living on, like holding on to strings of like some savings, but then you're just like full time on making it a game. So that's that's my path right now.
I like it. Starving artist.
Yeah.
It's the person, you're basically just trying to create stuff. You don't care about any safety. You just want to do your thing, plus teach on the side.
Yeah. And then more than anything, it's like the work that I want to do, like my personal games, not working for somebody else making something. That's something that I feel like all of us kind of want that. Yeah, some of us, I don't know. Some people actually want to just work with a group.
Well, yeah, because it depends. It's like you work together with a great team, you make something incredible, and you work by yourself and make something uniquely your own, and maybe one day you'll make your own studio and build your own vision. Who knows? But yeah, I like that. And then when did you start making your first like own indie game?
I think I was attempting back in, I feel like when I was first trying to teach myself Unity, like 2014 or something, I was making a 2D game. That was so bad. It was a platformer. I didn't favor it. And then I made a bunch of little prototypes I also didn't like from 2014. I feel like, so I started the game that I'm working on, like a serious game that I have carried to now to 2020. That was 2000, and I think concept art was made in 2018 for it. So
what's it called again?
So it's called The Mills. The Mills.
And what's your inspiration behind?
Inspiration is, it's interesting how it's 10 years of everything that I have gone through right before, including the moving to New York in a way, like out of nowhere, surviving. It's funny how I'm making a survival game. It was just like, and then the character kind of survives of like nothing. So that other inspirations, there's a lot of mechs in the game, a lot of robots, and you're building robots in the game. So one of the side jobs that I was teaching game design, and then one of the things, somebody came inside my class, they were like, oh, we had an issue with the teacher, with another instructor. Can you like solve this class? And it was a robotics class. So I ended up also getting into being a coach for robotics, like competitive robotics. So I learned on the job how to build a robot on the moment. So that was fun. I mean, that was years ago. After, you know, the last teams that I had, robotics teams, I knew how to actually make robots. But at the beginning, I was just like, I learned it on the spot also, how to build robots. So anyway, so the robots were our inspiration for the game, the survival system of my life itself, and actually vintage things, old things. There was a big time when I was in Florida, I would always hang out at this Rolls Royce, Jaguar, Bentley, like 1950s junkyard per se. This is like not my actual grandfather, but somebody that I would call my grandfather. I would always hang out in this place. I thought it was kind of like an art museum, but he was just fixing cars. It was a restoration shop. Anyway, so this place kind of looked like a game. So you would, I would go there, and I don't know if you ever looked at 1950s tools, wrenches and stuff, but they're not like little wrenches for cars. They're like humongous. So they look like weapons, like game art weapons. So I always thought this whole thing, like the whole like world of this devastated, broken down parts and cars everywhere, and then this big tools, I thought it looked like a game to me. So I ended up making that in a game out of it, and combining it with the robots and other things that I came across. I think literally everything in the game, there's an anecdote for literally everything that even like the colors that I chose. There's a story behind everything. So everything is inspirational.
Hey, okay. You're basically like expressing yourself through this game.
Yeah, for sure. There's like also like inside stories, I think nobody expressing, but then there's also like hidden things, I think.
Like Easter eggs or things that, or just
no, like just like I know, like I can look at a color of something, I'm like, okay, that color came from this.
Okay, something that maybe nobody will know, but you understand.
Yeah, there's a lot, actually a lot of it. It's just things that I know about.
That's awesome. And so then also streaming, and when did that start?
Oh, that's so that was I was getting my master's, so that was NYU, NYU's Game Center. That was what I even started streaming. Oh, we had a class. It was actually streaming, like Twitch streaming class. I took it one day and I was like, oh no, this is too much work, and I just left. And then I was like, oh wait, I want to do this still.
Oh my gosh!
But instead of being like as homework assignment for a class, this is the thing about like when I was young, going to the library and doing things for myself. I just wanted to be just because I wanted to do it, not because I was taking a class. So I learned, the only thing I took from that one class was the most important thing was that you need to, like, we should stream as a game, we should stream our work. So I that's what I learned. I thought that's all I needed. And I had my laptop. I borrowed a microphone from the school, and it was really hard. I had to like try to find an empty classroom to stream, and I would start streaming. This is in 2000, and it was before I was graduate. It was about before I almost graduated. So this is 2019, May 2019, when I started to stream. And I would just try to find an empty classroom, and I literally would be streaming, and like a classroom would go in. I'm like, oh crap! And I'm like, okay, it's time to bye guys. And then so I would stream every single day since like the last semester of me getting my master's. And I would stream, and it wasn't about playing games. I streamed game development. So I would just showcase my game as I was working on my project, my game. And that's what I did. And it was just interesting just to stream every day. And then people would just come, and then they would just, ask questions and stuff.
When you started off, how many people did you have?
Oh, I literally had, it was like less than 5 people on the stream. It was like, there's.
When did you hit like 100?
When I hit 100?
Yeah.
When I hit well, this is the thing. Game developers, I don't know if you've ever seen the game developer, sorry, okay, the first time I hit 100 was when Gabe, the one who made Ape Out, he joined my stream. And then like he was just hanging out. He was playtesting my game. So that's the first time I hit 100. But anyways, but if you look at a game dev, like there's a technology channel within Twitch, and you look at the game dev community, it's a lot smaller. So your numbers there are not as big as, like, you don't get like you don't see anybody there with like 1,000 or something. It's a smaller community. So 100, it's like literally the best will get to the
really
100.
In game. Okay.
Yeah, in the smaller communities of game development, there's maybe 2,000 people watching at a time. So unlike, so it's a smaller niche of Twitch.
It's still a lot of people. 100 people. They're all watching you. It's a lot of people.
Yeah, and it's good when you get that. Usually nowadays it's like whenever you get raided, you get with like a bunch of people. I like it when people come in and raid with like a bunch of people. That's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's get a whole squad together, guys. Let's go.
Yeah. Well, no, from like raid. It's like when there's in another Twitch account, they're streaming, and then at the another stream they'll bring everybody to your thing. That's raid to your. So that's like raiding. Raid to your.
Okay, cool. This is
it's
kind of terminology I don't know about.
Yeah. So that's what raid means. Raid, it's when other people from their streaming go into your stream. So it seems like the people get combined together.
Nice. And so then you just stream game development now, or do you do like both, like game dev and games?
I do mainly game development. It's interesting how if you're a game dev, once in a while I have streamed games, but it's interesting how people don't care for it as much since they know you're a game dev. So your viewers almost in a way go down sometimes. At the same time, people kind of want that sometimes. But it's not as desired. One of the reasons is because if they're going to look at somebody that plays games, they might as well go maybe to somebody else whose focus is on that.
Yeah, sure.
It's a lot about consistency on Twitch. So it's like people expect you to do this, so they'll come to you for this. Like if you make, I don't know, concept art there, then they expect you to always make concept art. Once in a while, you can take a break and here and there, but for the most part, it's almost like you gotta stick to what your thing is. So I don't stream games as much, for sure.
Have you played any games recently?
I was playing actually yesterday. Was it yesterday or the day before yesterday? I remember you lost some time. Frostpunk. I was playing Frostpunk.
Frostpunk.
What's that? And then it's an RTS, so it's a strategy game, kind of like a survival strategy game. I love strategy games as a whole. It's weird how I don't think as an indie dev could make an RTS because it's too much work. Then I was playing. I've been addicted to Valorant for some time. I don't know why I'm addicted to Valorant. Valorant.
Okay. Oh, Valorant. Yeah. It's a new shooter game, right?
It's just a shooter game. It's popular now. I don't know why. Maybe you know why? Because I got this new box recently. And then I needed just a game that would updo the gaming computer. Maybe that's why. But beyond that, I love to play RTS games, like like coming from StarCraft and whatnot.
Yeah, those games are amazing. It's just been a while since I played them, but I need to get them on my.
You need time for them. I don't
that's the thing. Yeah,
much time.
It's hard as a game developer because you want to make stuff, but then you're like, I want to play. But if I play, I have to invest so much time. It's like I could just invest that time into making something. It's like my brain fights me.
Yeah, interesting. I was playing Frostpunk and I was looking at because I was working on my user interface in my game, and I'm like looking at it's like your brain almost like it's not really 100% playing the game. I'm like looking at like how they're making things. I'm like researching, which is still bad. It's like you're not. I don't fully.
Yeah, like, living in the moment.
Things. You're not really. I'm not fully enjoying the actual game. I'm literally also studying the game. So that's. So when I say that I'm playing it, I don't know how much of I'm playing the game is.
I try to do this justification. Oh, I'm studying the game, but I was like, no, I'm playing. I'm playing the game. But so I want to go back to when you taught yourself Unity and programming. For anybody who's like starting out as an aspiring game developer, what tips would you give them to learn like Unity the way you did? Because you seem to have learned it pretty quickly to teach it.
Oh man, I would this is the questions, I get asked this question a lot, but it's interesting how it kind of depends if somebody wants to be a programmer or an artist for Unity, or if they want to do the whole thing. I'm just going to answer it as if they want to be kind of like me, that just learn the whole thing.
Yeah.
Just so we can get a more broad stroke. So it's interesting from the documentation from the programming side of things, the documentation, I made that like my best friend. And it was always like, it wasn't so much about me learning everything about Unity. It was about learning how to read documentation. And think about it like, let's say that, I'm gonna give an example. Let's say that, in a Kia manual, right? Okay. So you go to the store and you buy yourself, a desk or something, and then you get a manual. And then that manual gives you instructions how to build the table. And then like you're using it in the moment, and essentially we are almost like taught to learn how to read this manual and to do it. So instead, when people learn about Unity and other things, they think of it like IKEA. Imagine instead of knowing how to use that manual, you would just memorize how to make everything in that IKEA setup. Like you would just learn from your head, memorize like how a table gets built, how the chair, the couch, and everything. Instead of like studying the manual and how to actually read the manual. So in this case of the documentation I'm talking about of Unity, like I know a documentation works in a certain way for programming, like it's separated by classes and etc. So I just learned how to read that and how does that work. So then what happens is when I was teaching, etc., I would just come across, I would be stuck or somewhere. I would go for the students, I'll be, okay, so this is, if I was actually stuck for real, but if I was trying to figure this out, the best way is to do it with problem solving skills, right? So I'm going to teach you guys problem solving. So this is what I would do. So I would just go look it up in the documentation, whatever the programming was. And then I will look at, how the setup was and what it is that you're supposed to use it as. And then I would go and try it, etc. But it's almost like, why learn programming as a whole when you can just learn how to use documentation? And as when it comes to games, it's very non-linear. Like I can work on the character controller, and then I could work on the enemies like separated, maybe the lighter and whatnot. So why learn how to make everything, or why have knowledge of everything when you can just look at the documentation for particular things and just do it at the moment? So I almost feel like I never particularly learned in game development at all as a whole at the beginning. I just learned how to read documentation for programming. And then other things like, I feel like Unity, it's like a lot of it's just dragging things. I just kind of just started to just click and move things around. And then, yeah, I did watch YouTube videos, and I went to the bookstores at the library and looked at books for it. That was the thing.
That's awesome though, because the idea is like, I've been here, but like I think a lot of people too in the game dev, like anyone who's aspiring game developer, but you just think, oh, I have to learn all of this and then I can make a game. So like, let me go learn all the programming. And you're like, okay, well now I want to make characters. So I'm going to learn how to move all 3D modeling. Then like, I need to learn audio. Let me go learn all. And then by the time that even happens, you might even forgot the programming because you've been so focused on learning audio design that you just like, it just all becomes like forgotten. And then you're back at square one, where it's like, just take what you need. So if you need to go into documentation, like you said, and then figure it out. And then if you need to learn more, then go learn some extra programming stuff on. Just learn what you need, because if you don't need it, you won't remember it. It's kind of like school. I've always learned stuff, and then you take a test and you forget about it because you don't use it. It's not important. It doesn't matter to you.
Yeah. So the second thing of that, it's about it not always rely on watching YouTube videos for everything, because it's going to come to the time that there's tutorials of what you need for your game that are not going to exist for what you need. So doing some actual learning on your own, like problem solving yourself, it's also part of the learning process. So using documentation is part of it, it's like, hey, you can actually teach it yourself as well. So I would recommend anybody who's starting out, yes, to look at tutorials, etc., because they're usually industry professionals, or so they have more experience, so they can get you there too faster. But not only just rely on one source, use different things, books. Definitely, for sure, I would use books, videos, and self-taught, literally from documentation. Like manuals. The manual of Unity. It's interesting how that's the thing. And when you have a question, just ask in the forums of Unity. And I have, even myself, have gotten responded from people of Unity, which is, if somebody doesn't have the question asked, then you can ask. But yeah, it's almost like this self-taught thing of trying to figure it out yourself. It's part of like growing your brain to be able to do things. One of the things about it is that a program like Unity updates, I think, every 6 months or something.
Yeah.
So if you don't develop those skills about being able to look up something yourself up in the condition, etc., you need to be able to, if you were doing something 6 months earlier because you followed a tutorial, then there was an update in Unity, you need to be able to figure out how is it that you have to update it yourself, because you may get a bug, something that Unity changed. So if you can't look up that documentation to see what was the difference in coding, or like what happened, then you're going to be lost. And then eventually that's 6 months becomes a year, etc., and etc. What people also do is like they stick with the old Unity or old programs. So like 5 years later, they're completely outdated. So if they wanted to get a job somewhere, it's like, forget it. So that's like a problem that you have from veterans to stay with old programs, and then newbies that are not learning for the future. It's like what they need to do for later on when they're a veteran. So it's interesting, like that you need the two things, thinking about when you're a veteran and before, to also teach yourself to do things. It's funny, I guess that I taught others, but I always taught myself, I guess, first.
Yeah, you learn how to teach yourself so that you can teach others, basically.
Yeah, and then sometimes, all the time when I'm stuck, my students would say, and I tell them, if I'm stuck or I don't know something, somebody asks me something, I look it up and I show, hey, this is how I would figure it out, just to show students how does my brain actually work, of like thinking about how to solve something. It's almost like the best teaching that you can get is how to teach yourself in a way. How can you teach yourself? It's like the best education, in my opinion. I don't know.
Yeah, it's true, because you have to learn how to learn. It's a weird thing. Nobody really teaches you how to actually learn something. So it's just like study it, memorize it. It's like, is that
that's the thing. Now, I would say what we've just talked about relies on technical things. I wouldn't say like game design, like the actual game design, like player experience, like a balancing of a game, etc., the dynamics of the game, even game theory. I feel like something like that, it's nice to be part of a community learning it. So it's a little bit different. I don't think teaching yourself that is strong. Like when I went to the NYU Game Center, like really learning game design from other people, and I feel like that's a little harder to self-teach yourself. It's interesting. I feel like people think it's backwards. I feel like technical, they feel like they can just play games and that's it. Like that's all they need, the knowledge that they need, which sometimes you do, but maybe talking about like, why is this game good in this way, etc.
Yeah, because there's some games too where they were not really received well, but they did something unique, and it's worth mentioning and discussing why it didn't work, but how can you make it better? And it's more about theory and like psychology, and in fact, I feel like game design is in fact understanding the world itself, like economics, like acting, like math, just all the stuff so that you can bring it together and make the game that you want to make. So yeah, that's not easy at all. It's a lot of stuff you need to know. And if you read those books like The Art of Game Design, it's just like loaded with different lenses of how to view the world, how to view making games, and view the way you're gonna players gonna view the game. It's just like, oh my gosh.
Exactly.
You ever feel like so for game design, is that come more natural to you, or is it just or programming or art, or which one's like your thing that came natural to you?
I guess everybody sees me more of the concept art artist side. It's interesting how it is easier and it comes more natural, the artist. I feel like though if I only did that, my brain would get bored. I feel like my brain needs to always be in like the challenging itself and risk taking all the time, as I said before. So I feel like the challenge of the programming is what keeps my brain sane, so I can go to also do art after.
Nice.
So yeah, it comes natural to me, the art, but not natural enough that I can just do that. Like I almost like I need everything else to also do that. I don't know, it's interesting, it's weird.
Mm-hmm. And then I want to get into like one moment in your life where you felt like it was like dark time, like the dark winter, and then like, how'd you overcome that, or do you not have that?
Oh no, yeah, definitely. So if you noticed, I did earlier, I said I wanted to go to a master's in 2011, but then I went to get a master's like 6-7 years later. So it's like something happened in the middle. Something had to happen in the middle. Yes, there is something happening in the middle. Two things happened. I had 2 accidents. I had burned my like the inside with some chemicals, like the veins. So my eyes.
How?
I had burned the veins of my like 40%. So this is where I went traveling. That was the time that I went to travel because I needed, my eyes had to go away from the computer. All right, so that's that. That wasn't a big of a deal. In 2012, I completely broke off my hand, my wrist. So this broke it. So if you have, this is where you don't pay attention I'm talking about for other partition audience. So, because I'm going to say something kind of grossed out, I guess. But
warning, guys, it's gonna get gross.
So, well, not grossed out, but like a little bit intense. Okay, so so you know how you have your hand here. So the entire hand, the bone, the inside of the bone, broke off, and it was hanging. It's just hanging like outside.
Oh God. Oh, so disgusting.
So but this is like inside the skin. So that's why you can't see any things. But anyway, so it was broken. And for the injury like that, it took me 1 year of therapy, but then about 4 years to get it back into proper motion again.
Wow. What'd you do?
One of so like that was a sad moment. The other second reason I came to New York with nothing, it was more of one of those things people say to move forward, you need to put in your things in the back, put your past in the side so you can move forward. I literally wanted to do that, literally. Like I literally put left everything, just not to think of anything that happened before. Like, oh, to be sad, oh, my hands doesn't work the same way, maybe I'm not the same artist or whatever. It was just like to push forward. So that's what I did. I literally got rid of everything that reminded me of Florida as a whole, and I just moved forward, literally. I just changed, it's almost like changing your atmosphere, changing where you are. I feel like people, if you're somewhere and the energy is not strong, I feel like you should change it, change your energy around you. So that's my hand. Wow. So that was that was a tough time, I guess.
Yes, damn, it's a long time.
Yeah. It was a tough time. It was one of those things though. The doctor was like, it was in the moment he was like the surgeon, he was like, oh, I need to cast it. He's like, oh, what position do you want? Okay. He said it's out of nowhere. He's like, what position do you want to cast your hand? Because there's a 7% chance that it would ever move. There's less than 7% chance that your hand's gonna ever move again. So he was just like, doctors don't even just say in the moment. And I was like what, what position what would you say in the moment? Yeah. I said in that one moment, I didn't even think about it because I didn't have time. I said, well, I want to draw. So can you just cast my hand in a drawing position? So like my hand's default position, it's just like when you make a 3 object, it starts at 0, 0, 0. Mm-hmm. So like you show, the hand, like the relaxed hand. Yeah. But like my hand's default right now because of that cast, it's like that. It's like the drawing hand.
Really? Wow, that's incredible.
So yeah. So that was so anyway, so that just going back to the question, just I literally left everything that was just reminded me of this, and then just kind of like moved forward. That was my take on how to, I don't know if that's the best thing to do it, but letting go of the past, like literally. That was the thing that I wanted to do. That I did.
It's incredible. That's very inspirational. Like just your whole story, this whole podcast has been like wow, and wow.
So like, we this is just like the end. I good thing I didn't say I also had other stuff in the childhood, but it's just that's not.
We'll save that for another time.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah.
But yeah, damn, that's crazy. But yeah, so this has been great, and actually we'll probably move towards the to challenge, give that challenge, and then we'll end it off. So have you thought of a challenge for the GameDev.tv student?
Yes, like so challenge for them what to do.
Yeah.
So I feel like, okay, so usually I'm thinking a challenge for somebody that's starting out, or not even somebody that could be also being middle ground, or somebody that wants to change from being like a, I don't know, a software engineer to being a game dev or something. Okay. So this is what I would say. Usually what happens, especially when you're starting out, people stick to like one program, like say like Unity on Unreal, and maybe they do a Blender, and they just stick to like the two programs, and they forever for like 5 years they learn that, and that's it. What happens is that that's not going to get you very far, in my opinion. What I used to do as a kid, I used to take a month. Every single month, I used to switch to a brand new program and learn as much as I could of that particular program, and then switch to another one and another one and another one. So I would say challenge to for like 5 or 6 months to completely learn a brand new program, and then focus on that program for the entirety of the month. You might not even get back to that program, but the thing is that the more programs you know, the easier it will be to learn new programs. And people always ask like, oh, should I learn Maya, Blender, Studio Max, or should I learn Unity or Unreal? And I always say, no, learn all of them. So like the challenge should be like, take a month of Unreal, take a month of Unity, take a month of Blender, take a month of Maya, etc. And you keep going. It's interesting how you had 30-day trials of the things.
True, you can just 30 days, learn that for 30 days.
Yeah, and the point of this is like, you never know in the future what the industry will lead you to something. We never know if Blender will be the next program in 3D. We never know what if Unity might be a thing, or it might not, or Unreal might be a thing. You never know. All I know is that throughout the classes that I taught, like I taught Flash, animation, Reweir. I taught a bunch of programs to a bunch of classes, even robotics. There was literally programs that I taught and it did that I hadn't used since I was like that kid, that for that 1 month. It's interesting how like I had knowledge of it enough that I could even get like like I passed like the interview questions. But like, it's just as a minimum I had, and then like you can just, you have it as a foundation and you keep going. But you never know. And then one of the things about it, you'll have a foundation. So later on, when you do need to learn it, then it's not going to be the scary thing. It's like, oh, what happens is like people just usually like, oh, I think it's like going to be too complicated, or I can't handle, I don't think I can handle so many programs, etc. You never know what's going to happen in the future, where you're going to end up.
That's true.
So the challenge is to learn different programs on the monthly basis, for sure, for some time, for a long time.
I love that challenge. I did a lot, because honestly, I think I used to do that, and then I was like, oh, I'm not getting anywhere, so let me learn one program, and I think I've been with one program for a while now, and it's like I'm kind of getting that like urge to like, let me go learn on Unity again, or like revisit Unity, or revisit Blender, or go learn something totally new. I should probably, yeah. So I love that challenge a lot. Yeah.
Like new things. I guess yeah, you do that, but of course you should maybe be making some prototypes in Unity or Unreal. You should be doing that, but you should also be doing the challenge that I just gave to learn new things.
All right, I'll do it. I can't wait to see what people do and think about that challenge. But yeah, so this has been awesome. Thank you for coming on the podcast. It's been a lot of fun. I learned a lot. And then I want to hand the mic to you to do any last minute like inspirational quotes and any shout outs, anything you want to do to end it off, to give your last words. And thank you for coming on, Nova.
Okay, so thank you. I guess I'm gonna quote, I don't know exactly what to quote. One of my favorites, interesting, this is totally out there, but different, but one of the people that I've been inspired from in the past, I think 2 years. So this is Saint Laurent. This is a fashion designer. And the reason why he said I was watching him when obviously a documentary. He's not alive, but I was watching him and he was talking about that from the fashion designer's point of view, it's the hard part is about making something accessible to people. Forget also not only just Saint Laurent, but for fashion design as a whole, is that I feel like we should inspire ourselves from fashion designers as indie developers. And the reason why is because, think about it, it's kind of easy to go out there as an indie developer, make an experimental game, like a very artsy game, like it's totally out there. It's also very easy to do like a AAA game where it goes to like a mass set of audience, right? And now for fashion designers, what they do is like, it's easy for them to make like this couture artistic show, like totally out there with clothes that nobody's going to wear. It's very easy to also do like a classic like Gap type of like wear that's just very simple. Now the true inspirational fashion designers from the back in the days, they actually made clothes that were like right at the middle. They were accessible to people. So they had that unique vision, but then they also were like loved by the masses of things. So it's almost like this is our goal. I feel like inspiration as an indie developer is like, how do we make like these accessible games? How does that happen? How can you make this? How can you still keep your artistic vision as these fashion designers had, but then also produce for the masses? So I feel like fashion designers should be those type of people that we should actually look at to see, because they achieve great things. It's interesting how as indie developers, we're perceived as more like the lower dominator sometimes. But in their sense, their independence, if you think about it, like you hear Saint Laurent, Oscar de la Renta, Marc Jacobs, like they were the greatest. I feel like in the future, if we follow their paths, I feel like the indies could be the greatest.
Well, that's it. Thanks for listening. You can find all courses at GameDev.tv or in the show notes at a discounted price. Get started with your game development journey today.